Joining me for more on this, Seth Kaplan, managing partner at Airline Weekly. Seth, what is your most prominent question about the disappearance of this flight?
Yeah, well, something seems to have happened very quickly. And a lot of times when you have an incident like this, it's really the confluence of several different things. You know, bad weather, of course, won't usually bring down a flight by itself. Even a bad decision by crew or some minor mechanical problem, those things alone won't do it. But sometimes when they all happen together, and if we think back to Air France 447, for example, about 5 years ago off the coast of Brazil, that's sort of what happened. Very bad weather, some mechanical issues, instruments giving inaccurate airspeed readings related to the weather, and then the crew, investigators found, maybe not reacting so well. All of those things together causing what happened. And so my question here is that what happened here? Some combination of all of that? And if so, what was the most important factor?
But I just have to wonder if there wasn't something catastrophic that happened on board that caused this plane to virtually vanish in mid-flight. I mean, no distress calls from the pilot, nothing. It just simply went away.
Right, no distress call per se, although we know certainly that they requested that altitude change, right, and never got cleared to do it until later. And, pilots, their first priority is to fly the plane. And any pilot will tell you that, if you have a choice between communicating something with somebody on the ground and simply, making an adjustment that allows you to do something safe, making some last-minute maneuver, that's what you do first. So, although certainly, some sort of a mayday call would help us right now understand what happened, the pilot's first job is to fly the plane, and so that may have been what was happening. When things go wrong, they go very wrong, and they just might not have had time.
Right. The cockpit rule is aviate, then navigate, then communicate, finally. What about terrorism? I don't hear anybody talking about the possibility of terrorism, but is that anywhere in your mind as a possible cause here?
Well, it's too early to rule anything out, but as you start connecting dots, this very much, our tendency, of course, because we're talking about an airline here whose parent is based in Malaysia, is to go to, what are the similarities with MH370 especially, and the incident a couple months later. But, in this case, kind of the opposite of 370. With 370, you could make a case early on that, well, maybe something mechanical happened, but everything sort of pointed to, this seems to have been done by somebody who didn't want us to know what was going on in the cockpit. In this case, none of those kinds of indicators here, although too early to say otherwise. Every indication that, bad weather, pilots trying to make some sort of adjustment. And so in terms of just guessing, and that's really what we're doing at this point, what might have happened, that's the starting point with this one, whereas with 370, it was exactly the opposite.
I'm puzzled why ground-based radars wouldn't have picked up the descent of this plane, or at least pieces of the plane. I mean, I know it was out over open ocean, but would there not be ground-based radars that could still, from that distance, have picked up some kind of signature of something heading toward the water?
Yeah, and it all depends really, John, on how quickly it all happened. As you know, radar, it goes around and it's scanning, and so it's not an exactly real-time indicator of what's happening in the same way that, say, a GPS is with a cell phone or something. So, something could happen so quickly that you wouldn't necessarily pick it up. Particularly radars basically reflecting off things. You could have had some sort of object falling, but with the bad weather and whatnot, all kinds of things happening at once. So, although again, it would be helpful, to have had some indicator like that. And by the way, we still don't know exactly what exists out there in terms of radar tapes, but not necessarily any indication that something nefarious happened. It could have all just happened too quickly for us to, at least with what we have right now at our fingertips, to know what had happened.
Well, again, debris has been found. It has not been confirmed to be debris from that aircraft, but another mystery in that part of the world. Seth Kaplan from Airline Weekly, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.